The job approval rating for Dabo Swinney amongst Clemson fans. Very interesting. Very interesting. We send our operatives out into the field. I'm making all this up. We send our operatives out in the field, and they poll thousands upon thousands, again, I'm making this up, of Clemson fans. And they come back and they tell us Dabo's job approval rating, 65%. Does this sound right? Previously, it would have been above 80%. Most of his career has been above 90%. It feels like last week was a little bit of a change moment in the trajectory of Clemson football. I said that. I don't take a word I said back. It felt like it was a little bit of an icebreaker moment, and by that I mean it feels like there was a floor on how low his job approval rating could go, and it went below what we thought the floor was. So that's an icebreaker moment. Really, really granular polling terminology here. He gets credit for his legacy, as he should, because he's one of the greatest of all time. And there's certainly no hot seat talk. I don't even want to entertain that. There's a big difference in I don't approve of the job you're doing right now and I want you fired. Those are two very different things. However, they're on the verge of missing the playoff for the fourth consecutive year. And the reason that's a problem is because they made it the previous half dozen years. They had 6 straight years in the 4-team era where they made it. And now they're on the verge of missing out for the 4th straight year. And if I'm a Clemson fan, I may have a little problem with your portal approach, but it would be okay if you were killing it in recruiting. Let's take a look at the records. All right, then I'll get to recruiting. 2019, that's the last time they played for a national title. They were 14-1, really good year. 2020, they were 10-2. 2021, 10-3. 2022, 11-3. Last year, 9-4. Now they're 6-2. Just a really good team. A pretty good to a really good team. That's what they've been. There's nothing wrong with that, but you are a prisoner of your past success. There are consequences. Oh, that's a big hiccup. There are consequences of success. Dabo has to deal with them. It's a blessing to have to deal with that, believe it or not. But if I'm a Clemson fan and I disapprove of the job he's doing right now, I probably disapprove of it because there's been not sprinkles of portal usage. There's been 0 portal usage. And there's no excuse for that. We're Clemson, and we ought to go get players who can help us, who fit our criteria, who are good fits here. That doesn't mean take 10 of them per cycle, but even 1 or 2 of them per cycle could mean the difference in a game. And number 2, the reason I hold that stance is because we're not an elite recruiting program. We're not. We're just a pretty good program recruiting. 2021, we were 5th. And the depth of that class past the top guys has been pretty insignificant. So it kind of hollowed out as a class, very top-heavy class. 2022, we were 10th. Then we were 11th. Then we were 11th. And now we're 16th in the middle of this cycle. There are holes in those classes. Development, case by case, has been somewhat of an issue, and there's no backfilling via the portal. There's no supplementation. And we have eyes. If I'm a Clemson fan, I can watch the other programs. It used to be us and Bama. It used to be 1A, 1B for a little stretch there. And now we're not in that conversation because we can't match the athletes with the big boys. And look, this is a year where everyone's flawed. We should be able to bottle up what's unique about Clemson and make a run, but instead we're being victimized by it. So no, I don't approve of that if I'm a Clemson fan. There are 24 guys on this 2 deep that are redshirt sophomores or younger, though. So theoretically, if the Clemson way is still operating at a very high level, and if we have recruited good enough players and we are developing them well enough, we should kill it next year. Because our nucleus here is young, and they, of course, have been developed in-house because we don't believe in the portal. And so I should see a really, really good explosive Clemson team this upcoming year. And if I see that, all bets are off. Approval rating goes back through the roof. Have you recruited championship caliber classes and enough championship caliber players? That's where there's the ... and we kind of have to wait for an answer. This year's team is not that. But job approval extends beyond just, the visual of this season. Clemson fans, I don't think they're impatient at all. I think they can disapprove somewhat of the direction we're going. Now, they can just as easily look down in Tallahassee and say, you know what, maybe we ought to count our blessings that we're not that. Because as much as you may get a little aggravated sometimes at Dabo's approach, there's a safety net built under how bad it can get. You know, if you start free falling, it ain't going that far. You're not going 1-8 with Dabo Swinney. You may go 6-2. It may go 6-3 if they lose this week or next week or whatever. But it's not going to be a disaster because it's sort of a disaster-proof program. And you've come to take that for granted. Maybe you shouldn't based on the history of the program, but you want to be better. And it's not the worst thing in the world to strive for excellence and demand it when you know good and well you can have it because you've seen it achieved by the same guy who is still leading the way.